Mr. Chairman. I've listened with great interest today, and here's what I hear you saying. The four folks to my left, I hear you saying that digital assets are different. Digital assets hold great promise. Digital assets need special rules. I agree with that. The obvious question is, what should those rules be, and to what extent should we allow you to draft them? I've also heard some of you say that digital assets represent the next generation of the internet.
Digital assets have become one of the most groundbreaking developments in modern finance, technology, and communication. They are no longer fringe experiments or speculative tokens. They have emerged as influential tools that have the power to reshape how we store value, transfer wealth, own digital property, and interact with decentralized platforms. These assets, cryptocurrencies, non-fungible tokens (NFTs), decentralized finance DeFi applications, and tokenized securities, operate in ways that make them fundamentally different from the traditional financial instruments most regulatory frameworks were designed for. As a result, the laws and regulations currently in place are outdated, misaligned, and in many cases, entirely incompatible with the unique features of digital assets. This creates a growing consensus among lawmakers, regulators, and industry professionals. Digital assets require a regulatory framework specifically tailored to their characteristics, risks, and opportunities. Traditional financial regulation was created in an era when assets were issued, held, and transferred through centralized institutions. These included banks, stock exchanges, and clearinghouses, all of which could be easily monitored, licensed, and held accountable. The Securities Act of 1933 and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, for example, assume the presence of centralized intermediaries, well-defined issuers, and traditional disclosures. But digital assets turn these assumptions upside down. Bitcoin doesn't have an issuing company. Ethereum is powered by decentralized smart contracts. NFT can be minted by individual creators on global marketplaces. There is no central office, no customer service line, and often no one in charge. This raises a fundamental question. How can we regulate something that defies central control? Many digital assets are also programmable, meaning they can execute automated actions based on conditions encoded into smart contracts. This kind of financial automation didn't exist when traditional regulations were written. Additionally, because blockchain transactions are borderless and near instantaneous, regulators face jurisdictional challenges. A user in Kenya can trade tokens with someone in Canada through a platform built by developers in South Korea. No single country's regulations can fully account for this level of global interaction. This makes the task of regulating digital assets not only a legal issue, but a geopolitical and technological one as well. The classification of digital assets is another massive regulatory gray area. Some digital tokens behave like securities. They are sold to raise funds for a project, offer returns, or grant governance rights. Others act like commodities, such as Bitcoin, which is mined and traded much like gold. Still others resemble currencies, especially stablecoins that are pegged to fiat like the U.S. dollar, and then there are utility tokens, which offer access to services rather than acting as investments. Trying to fit all these variations into existing definitions creates confusion for innovators, risk for investors, and enforcement challenges for regulators. This is why the crypto community often argues that existing laws are being forced onto technologies they were never designed to govern. Without a dedicated regulatory framework, uncertainty becomes the status quo. Companies don't know which licenses they need, what rules to follow, or which agency to report to. investors don't know whether they're protected or exposed. Regulators themselves may issue conflicting guidance, leaving the industry in limbo. The result is a lack of trust, reduced innovation in the United States, and an exodus of talent and capital to countries with more crypto-friendly environments. Clear custom rules would help remove this uncertainty and allow the industry to flourish while protecting consumers from scams, fraud, and systemic risks. A tailored regulatory approach would also enable more effective enforcement. Right now, enforcement is often reactionary. Agencies step in after a major failure, like the collapse of a major exchange or a massive token rug pull. This reactive model leaves retail investors vulnerable. With dedicated digital asset rules in place, regulators could act proactively, setting clear standards for disclosures, auditing, token launches, and custody practices. This would reduce bad behavior by making expectations known from the start and by giving regulators the right tools to act decisively when needed. Innovation thrives when there is room to experiment, but that experimentation must happen within boundaries. Overregulation could drive the crypto industry underground or offshore, but no regulation invites chaos. The key is to strike a balance between freedom and safety. A custom framework could, for example, offer a sandbox program that allows new crypto projects to launch under limited conditions while they are monitored. This gives them the opportunity to test their ideas without facing immediate penalties, while also ensuring that consumers are not left completely unprotected. Such forward-thinking regulatory ideas can only emerge when digital assets are treated as a distinct category. Protecting retail investors is another crucial reason to establish custom rules. Many people who invest in cryptocurrencies or NFT are everyday individuals looking for alternatives to traditional finance. Yet without proper oversight, they are frequently exposed to predatory schemes, anonymous developers who disappear with funds, and platforms that fail overnight due to poor technical infrastructure. Clear rules can require disclosures, enforce auditing requirements, and mandate insurance reserves for exchanges, just like banks are required to hold capital for emergencies. These mechanisms can protect users without stifling innovation. There's also the benefit of encouraging institutional involvement. Major financial players, banks, hedge funds, asset managers have shown growing interest in digital assets. However, many hesitate to enter the market without regulatory clarity. Institutions must follow strict compliance rules, and the lack of a well-defined framework for digital assets makes participation risky. With clear laws, these players would bring legitimacy, capital, and new financial products into the space. This would not only boost market stability, but also accelerate mainstream adoption. International coordination is another important factor. Because the crypto industry is borderless, regulation in one country must often align with others. Europe has launched the MiCA markets in crypto assets framework, and other regions are drafting their own laws. If the United States falls behind, it risks losing its leadership in financial innovation. To be a global standard setter, the U.S. must first create a model that works domestically, a flexible technology, forward set of rules that can evolve as the space grows. Without local clarity, international collaboration becomes much harder. All of this points to a single truth. Regulating digital assets as if they were traditional securities, commodities, or currencies simply doesn't work. These technologies deserve and demand a fresh approach, one that respects the principles of decentralization, values innovation, and upholds the need for accountability and consumer protection. The sooner lawmakers embrace this reality, the sooner the digital asset industry can mature into a trusted pillar of the global economy.
never a crook. Now, Senator, you need to
here's
focus
what
on
I'm
this
looking
bill.
right now.
You're doing this again. You did it the last
published a
hearing.
tweet that
You
said
need to
Senator
read the
Gillibrand's
bill.
role in stablecoin regulation, $217,000 in crypto donations. You tweeted that.
Yes, I do.
And then you said, the crypto industry is buying Congress and the White House. This won't end well. Why do you think the crypto industry is buying Senator Gillibrand?
I said.
The heated political tensions surrounding digital asset regulation in the United States are not only a reflection of deep ideological divisions, but also a major obstacle to effective policymaking. In recent congressional hearings, discussions about how to regulate the fast-evolving world of cryptocurrencies and blockchain-based platforms have often devolved into personal attacks, emotional confrontations, and political grandstanding. What should be a sober, forward-looking conversation about innovation, economic opportunity, and consumer protection instead turns into finger-pointing and chaos. These tensions don't just create uncomfortable TV moments. They delay urgently needed decisions and damage the credibility of the political institutions meant to govern this new digital frontier. When lawmakers meet to debate digital assets, they're supposed to be addressing how to classify different types of tokens, which federal agencies should have jurisdiction, and how to ensure Americans are protected from fraud while not stifling innovation. However, what often happens instead is a display of deep distrust between political parties, suspicion toward witnesses, and even attacks on one another's motives. In one particularly dramatic exchange, a senator accused a witness of calling another senator a crook based on comments made on social media. The witness defended himself, saying he was merely pointing out the volume of campaign donations from the crypto industry to certain members of Congress. Rather than moving forward with thoughtful questions about the bill in question, the conversation descended into emotional and at times juvenile accusations. This kind of behavior does more than just distract. It undermines the entire process of legislating. When a senator calls a witness a whack job or another senator starts shouting about being misquoted on Twitter, the conversation loses its focus. Lawmakers and experts who came prepared to debate policy find themselves instead fending off personal attacks or trying to calm tensions. These outbursts are not isolated incidents. They reflect a deeper dysfunction in how Congress handles controversial and technically complex topics. Digital assets, because of their financial stakes and disruptive potential, have become a political flashpoint that exposes these underlying fractures. One of the root causes of this tension is the growing influence of money in politics. The crypto industry has been rapidly increasing its political donations in an attempt to influence regulation. Some see this as a natural evolution. Industries always seek to have their voices heard. Others see it as corruption in disguise, with lawmakers allegedly being bought to push industry-friendly legislation. When one senator accuses another of selling out to crypto donors, or when a witness implies that certain lawmakers are compromised, the discussion stops being about digital assets and becomes a moral battleground. This intensifies mistrust, encourages defensiveness, and makes bipartisan collaboration almost impossible. This environment of suspicion is toxic not just for Congress, but for the entire country. The public, watching from home or following online clips, sees their elected officials yelling over each other rather than solving problems. They see experts interrupted, dismissed, or accused without evidence. This erodes public confidence in the government's ability to handle emerging technologies competently. If citizens feel that Congress can't even have a calm, constructive conversation about something as important as digital finance, how can they trust those same lawmakers to regulate artificial intelligence, data privacy, or cybersecurity? What makes this problem even worse is that digital assets desperately need smart, informed regulation. This industry is still in its early stages, and the decisions made today will shape its direction for decades. If the political process continues to be dominated by posturing and blame, we risk writing laws that are either too harsh, too lenient, or completely unworkable, that would either drive innovation overseas or open the door to widespread abuse and market instability. But with every emotionally charged hearing, the chances of thoughtful compromise grow smaller. Another issue is that some lawmakers lack a deep understanding of the technology they're trying to regulate. When that ignorance is paired with intense political rivalry, it creates an even more dangerous dynamic. Lawmakers who feel threatened, defensive, or confused may lash out instead of asking questions or listening to answers. This was on full display during the recent exchange where a senator kept repeating accusations based on a tweet, refusing to accept the witnesses' clarifications. The goal seemed less about understanding crypto regulation and more about scoring political points in front of cameras. This performative politics is not limited to one party or side. It's a systemic issue. Both progressives and conservatives have used the crypto debate to advance their broader agendas, whether about deregulation, big tech skepticism, or financial justice. While it's natural for lawmakers to bring their values into policy discussions, using the issue as a weapon in unrelated ideological wars only adds to the confusion. Crypto regulation should be approached with clarity and neutrality, not used as a tool to attack opponents or defend partisan positions. The consequences of this dysfunction are already being felt. Other countries are moving faster and more decisively in setting up legal frameworks for digital assets. The European Union's MiCA legislation provides clear rules for crypto businesses and investors, giving them a stable foundation to operate. Countries like Singapore and the UAE are welcoming crypto innovation with open but carefully managed arms. In contrast, the United States is falling behind, with its regulatory landscape fragmented, uncertain, and increasingly shaped by enforcement actions rather than proactive legislation. This isn't just a missed opportunity, it's a competitive disadvantage. The U.S. has always led the world in financial innovation, but if it continues to be hamstrung by internal political fights, it risks ceding leadership to others. Innovators, startups, and investors are already looking to relocate to more predictable jurisdictions. Every time a congressional hearing goes off the rails, the message is clear: the U.S. doesn't have its act together. There is still time to fix this. Lawmakers must set aside their egos, focus on the real issues, and work together to create a comprehensive, balanced regulatory framework for digital assets. That requires listening to experts, respecting differing viewpoints, and resisting the urge to turn everything into a political battle. If Congress can rise above its divisions and treat the issue with the seriousness it deserves, it could create laws that both protect consumers and allow innovation to thrive. But if the current trajectory continues, where Twitter fights, campaign contributions, and personal grudges take center stage, the U.S. will not only fail to regulate crypto effectively, it will also lose its position as a global leader in shaping the future of finance. Political tension, left unchecked, could become the biggest barrier to progress in one of the most transformative industries of our time.